Decades ago, there was a peaceful kingdom. The king was kind. He listened more than he spoke. The people lived well. The land was fertile. The kingdom was stable. Yet the palace carried a quiet emptiness. Years passed. The king had no son. After 25 years of waiting, when hope had almost faded, a child was finally born. The palace celebrated. Bells rang. The kingdom rejoiced. People believed the waiting was over. But some blessings arrive late. And some stories begin. Exactly where joy feels complete. The king named him Alexander. He was the pride of the palace, so loved that his every flaw was met with silence. In this vacuum of discipline, the seeds of hubris were sown. He was a gifted warrior, possessing the raw talent to lead. But behind the flash of his blade, a dangerous ego was growing. Years passed. The aging king decided to pass the crown, announcing a grand coronation. Little did he know, this single decision would not just break a kingdom, it would shatter the world. The day arrived. The crown was placed on Alexander's brow, but as the cold iron touched his skin, the warmth left the room. He didn't speak of peace. His first command was a declaration of blood. "Prepare for war," he whispered to his commander. In that second, the cheers of the crowd died, replaced by a suffocating, traumatized silence. Their miracle was a master manipulator, a spy who had been weaving his web for years. Alexander didn't want to save the world. He wanted to own it. The terror had begun. When Alexander declared his crusade, the council did not cheer. The neighboring kings stood in open defiance. They looked at him and saw only a boy playing at war, unaware that they were standing in the presence of a predator. Alexander's pride was not a flicker, it was a wildfire. He did not argue. He did not negotiate. In a flash of cold, silver steel, the debate was settled in blood. The kings fell, and their protectors fell with them. The hall of marble became a cathedral of slaughter. Long pause, sound of blood dripping. The people wept, calling him a barbarian. They saw madness. But Alexander saw mathematics. To leave an enemy alive is to plant a seed of betrayal. He wasn't just killing men, he was erasing a revolution before it could breathe. Standing amidst the dead, his eyes burned with a dark truth. "You call this cruelty?" He spoke, his voice like cracking ice. "These are the same vultures who feasted on our lands while my father offered them mercy. He gave them bread. I give them the blade." He pointed his crimson-stained sword at the survivors. "The world has only two paths now. March behind my banner to glory, or lie here and rot with your masters. I do not tolerate traitors. I only tolerate winners." The blood in the hall was still wet when Alexander stepped onto the balcony. Below him stood the people, terrified, trembling. They saw a monster. But Alexander didn't want their fear, he wanted their faith. He didn't scream. He spoke of the vultures, the kings he had just executed. He reminded them of the old scars, the burned homes, and the children lost. He told a lie so beautiful it felt like justice. "I am not your killer," he whispered. "I am your shield." But truth has a way of whispering back. A few brave souls saw through the mask. They called him a tyrant. Alexander didn't argue. He simply labeled them traitors of the crown. In the cold shadows of the night, those voices were silenced, forever. By dawn, the terror had turned into a chant. The manipulation was complete. Alexander smiled. He didn't just have an army anymore, he had a cult ready to die for his pride. News of the fallen kings spread like a plague. Their kingdoms united, fueled by vengeance. On the horizon, a massive tide of steel appeared, an army 4 times the size of Alexander's. To the world, it looked like suicide. But Alexander didn't see an army, he saw a puppet show. Long before he wore the crown, he had planted his shadows within their ranks. His enemies were sleeping next to his daggers. As the trumpets sounded for battle, the unexpected happened. The enemy's own soldiers turned their blades inward. Commanders fell before they could give an order. The strategy was stolen before it was even whispered. The enemy kings were dragged through the mud and brought before Alexander. With a single strike, the leadership was severed. Seeing their gods bleed, the massive army dropped their steel. The war was over before the first arrow was even fired. Alexander stood on the silent battlefield. He didn't just win a war, he owned the future. But even as the sun set on his victory, a new shadow began to grow. Gold. Conquest is no longer a matter of steel, it is a matter of coins. Alexander stopped burning cities and started buying souls. He offered crowns to the greedy and gold to the weary. He won the world, but he traded his honor for a throne of lies. The eye of the storm. The king kept his promises, but he never kept his peace. He watched his new friends from the shadows of the pillars. He knew a traitor's heart. Those who sell their kingdom for gold today will sell you tomorrow. In a palace of 1,000 voices, he was utterly alone. The unseen reaper, but death does not take bribes. An invisible enemy entered his veins. Typhoid. Malaria. The swelling of the brain. The wine that once fueled his glory was now the poison that fueled his fever. 6 months of silence. For 6 long months, the lion roared in agony within his silk sheets. The world waited. His generals waited. The conqueror of the East was finally being conquered by his own blood. Alexander and his associates summoned every physician and healer from the known world. But no medicine, no prayer, could touch the sickness devouring the young king. The 33-year-old king, he was only 33, the age when most men begin to dream, yet he was struggling with death itself. The sage's arrival. One day, a sage appeared. In a tired, broken voice, Alexander asked, "O sage, I have conquered half the world. I have achieved in youth what men fail to find in a lifetime. But today, I am helpless before a mere fever. What was the meaning of it all?" The verdict. At that moment, a physician approached. He examined the king and whispered in terror, "Great king, forgive me, but you have only 2 or 3 days left." The rage. The king was shattered. In his fury, he ordered, "Throw this doctor into the dungeons. If I die, let his life be the first to follow me." The sage watched this madness in silence. The sage's mirror. Then the sage spoke, "Have you ever thought of the wars you won at such a young age? How many fathers never came home? How many children were orphaned? How many widows wept for your glory? The lost time. You conquered half the world, but what did you gain? You lost the most precious years of your life to war, and today, you cannot even defeat a simple illness." The bargain. What must I do? Alexander pleaded. The sage countered, "What are you willing to give in exchange for your life?" "Everything for a breath," Alexander cried. "Everything. My empire, my gold, my power, take it all. Just give me back my life." The mockery of wealth. The sage smiled sadly. "Everything you won in 20 years, you would trade in a single heartbeat. If all your conquests cannot buy you one more day, then what was the point of it all?" The final wisdom. The sage gave his last teaching, all is an illusion, Maya. He who is born must depart. While you breathe, be happy. If you cannot give joy, at least do not give pain. Live each day as if it were your last. And the sage vanished. The empty hands. From that day, Alexander began helping the poor. A week later, as death arrived, he told his general, "When you carry me to my grave, let my hands and feet hang outside the shroud. Let the world see, he who won the world leaves it empty-handed. We believe everything is within our grasp, power, fortune, triumph. But time whispered a quieter truth. The only empire we ever truly owned was the choice of how to live."